Hi everyone, it's Vicky McClifty here from AM Healing My Soul, and today I'm speaking with Liz Weatherly, who is a Louise Hay Heal Your Life coach. Welcome to the show today.
Thanks, Vicky. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah. So, as you know, this show is all about helping people who are, stuck in grief, trying to get something, make something out of their life through suffering grief in some form or other. What exactly do you do, Liz, that can help people?
So, as a Louise Hay teacher, what I do is I help people to connect with the idea that they are good enough as they are. And we use a whole lot of different strategies and this teaching of a variety of skills. And when people practice these things in their life, what they come to do is that they will develop a whole new set of beliefs about themselves, which are much more self-supporting. And in the realm of grief work, this is really helpful because it gives people a really flexible and personally supportive paradigm to work in as they see themselves going through what might be quite a foreign experience for them. And yet using Louise's method, they can really come to understand how they themselves have approached grief and tease out the strategies, if you like, that they've been using that aren't very successful for them and replace them with something that is much more compassionate towards themselves and enables them to develop a personal philosophy for themselves that their own approach is okay, their own pace is okay. And we use lots of work around looking at how people have been brought up, the family dynamics that they've been in, the cultural beliefs that they've been exposed to, and as we pull those apart, they can really begin to see that they've had perhaps a set of beliefs, some of which are really useful for them, and some of which have probably been quite counterproductive. And so, when they get to a point where they're stuck in their life and they come to me, what we're doing is we're looking at those counterproductive beliefs, helping them weed those out and replace them with something that's actually going to be really supporting, help them to be really healthy and to have a really healthy view of themselves and of life.
It's such a valuable thing, isn't it? Because people do tend to think that other people are doing better than themselves too with grief,
Yeah.
Everyone else has moved on and you're stuck. And you can be really hard on yourself. We all tend to judge ourselves quite substantially, I think.
I think it's, in psychology they talk about us having a bit of a negative bias in our minds. And I think if you take that and then you take, as you said, this idea that we see ourselves quite critically as a result of our upbringing, then we're in a bit of a lose-lose situation when it comes to something as profound an opportunity as grief is.
Yeah, because it opens up a whole new world for you when you do grieve, and your heart is broken open in grief, and it changes you from the soul. You feel it,
Absolutely.
So your story leading up to what sort of led you into doing what you're doing now?
So I first came across Louise Hay's work about 16 years ago. I was going through a time in my life where I was mum to 2 young children, and I actually found out that I was unexpectedly pregnant with another baby, and I was really unhappy about it, just because it was a big shock. And I later on, went on, and that child was such a wonderful gift. But at the time, I was really struggling physically with the pregnancy. It was really having miserable pregnancy symptoms, and was actually an acupuncturist who said to me, "Hey Liz, how about having a look at this book?" And that was really a moment that wasn't a life-changing moment to my awareness at that time, but it was because as I dipped into Louise's writings over the years, I really started to see what she was talking about and apply it to myself. And I had a series of events. My parents both passed away, and then there was I had another really big personal crisis, which was to do with my extended family. And even though that didn't involve a death, there was a massive grieving for a relationship that, in fact, it was more than one relationship that essentially disintegrated at that time. And I was really looking for some understanding of what had happened, or why it had happened, and I could see now, in retrospect, that I was already on a journey of my inner authentic self was really pushing to come out. Some people talk about that as being like your cosmic alarm clock going off, and it's just, you've been putting it on snooze, but then it just keeps coming back on. My cosmic alarm clock was like on full volume at that stage, and I really needed to be able to find my way through a really, really, it was one of those turning points in your life, and I could see really clearly that I could either keep going as I was, which for me was, I was pretty much a yes person. I just said yes to anybody who said, would I do this? And even if they didn't say it, but I just perceived that they'd like me to say yes, to go along with them. That was how I lived my life. There was really very little of me in my own life. And so that was the point where I started working more and more deeply with this idea, which I didn't even hear till I first came across Louise's book, this idea that you're lovable just as you are, that you're okay right here, right now. And I can honestly say that was the first time in my life that I've been aware of hearing that, and I was in my mid-30s by then. And the more I really I've worked with that idea and just reminded myself of it, I started to develop this clarity about the ways that I'd been just letting go of all sorts of parts of myself and my own life, living in a way that was really inauthentic, to the extent that I didn't even know what authenticity for me looked like. And so that was my journey, was going, well, actually, who am I? If I really stop just allowing myself to be washed this way and that based on other people's needs and wants and what makes other people happy and gives me a peaceful life, if I really stop that, who am I? What would I be like? And I started meeting a whole new person, and it's been really exciting. And that's the thing I love about Louise's work, is that it comes from a place of acceptance.
Yes.
Comes from a place of, there isn't anything wrong with you. You don't have to fix anything. And as a Louise Hay coach, that's what I love too, because I don't have to fix anything about people. It's an empowering process, which is underlined by that core idea that we are all responsible for ourselves. We're all creating our own experience of life. And that's so my role is just to be a cheerleader.
I think if people realise that they do have a choice every day,
Yeah.
to how they live their life. And I think most of us, well, a lot of us go through, I mean, I went through that. It's like this mask that we wear when we're out in public, and people just expect you to be as you are. But then somehow along the line, we start to believe that is who we are, and we lose who we really are. Like we sort of lose that connection with who we are.
Yeah. Oh, we're very scared of,
bad.
yeah, we might be very scared of taking that mask off as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I think personally that was my experience. I probably had, my inner self was asking for that mask to be taken off probably for 10 years prior to the time when I finally said, okay, I'm willing to do that.
Yeah, and looking and examining your emotions around things. I mean, you talk about, coming real with your emotions, and how many people want to speak about how they're feeling?
Well, sorry, there's a bit of a hollow laugh, isn't it? Yeah. It's such a vital part of healing. And I use that word healing very deliberately because it really encompasses what it is that we're doing, whether it's we're doing our grief work, whether it's we're trying to find a different pathway through life that doesn't involve depression and recurring depression. We have befriending our emotions is just such a core part of it, but there are so few models for us, either within our own family or within our peer group of friends as we're growing up, or even within our wider societal context, that communicate to us that emotions are good, emotions are healthy, and there is no such thing as a good or a bad emotion. I find, particularly in New Zealand, we've still got a lot of that English reservedness when it comes to emotions. And so a lot of people, the big door that they are needing to step through when they want to make significant change in their life is that door. And if you like, the door itself is all the emotions that are present that haven't ever been really fully heard and acknowledged and expressed. And on the other side of that door is all the stuff that they want in their life. And they want to get to the other side, but they don't want to go through the door.
They want the magic pill to happen, or something that wake up and saying it's all okay, and it's not that easy, is it? You really do have to go through the whole process, and and when you have some sort of trauma in your life, I mean, it's interesting you were saying before with it being a relationship loss, and that's what this is all about, this show with grief. Grief isn't all about the loss of a child or the loss of a parent or a spouse. It's the loss of a way of life, or the loss of a relationship, or the loss of a pet, or the loss of a limb, or a way of life too with illness. If you're suffering from illness, or someone that you love has a chronic illness or is on their way out, like, it covers so many factors, doesn't it? And I think we all try and put on a brave front with our emotions. I know I avoided a lot of people after my son passed, and to be honest, I avoided them because I didn't want to face reality, that it became too real if I spoke about it. But I also didn't want them I didn't want to upset them. And I think this is where you were saying before that I was a bit of a yes person, where I would agree to do a lot of things, even though deep down I really didn't want to do those things. But I was trying to be a people pleaser. And even through grief in those early days, I didn't want people to worry about what I was going through. And so I didn't want to upset anyone, and I would avoid long conversations or gatherings with people because I knew they would feel uncomfortable, and I did feel that they were uncomfortable. And so I just avoided you know, and a lot of people are like that. They don't want to upset others, and yet you're just as valuable. I mean, you're worthy, and you should be able to go through this and actually reveal your emotions to others and talk about it, because, you know, behind closed doors, it's such a hard experience to go through on your own when you're grieving over something, whatever it is. Very hard.
And especially when, you know, you think about the work that's been done around grief, like 4 decades now. You know, we have a really good understanding of kind of what the grief process looks like. And, you know, right in there in the middle of it is anger.
Yes. Yeah.
And yet how many of us feel able to really acknowledge and express the intensity of anger that's there, and it's very sadly I see people who are experiencing some big loss in their lives really struggling to give themselves permission to be angry, even though we have decades of study that says it's a very normal part of this process that we're going through. And you know, I guess that I'm so fortunate to have been to have taken my personal growth journey in a modality where emotional releasing is central. It's just part of what we do, and of course the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it.
Yes, definitely.
And the more you see how valuable it is and how you feel differently after you've done it. Not only at a psychological level, you don't have that sort of sense of, you know, oh my God, my head is going to explode feeling, or my body's going to explode, which is sometimes what it, you know, might feel like. But the freedom is actually, I mean, it's there's so many facets of that freedom, and often what I talk to people about is the at an actual physiological level in your body, so at the level of your cells and your body chemistry, or what I like to call the soup that's inside our body. You know, it changes the soup in our body when we do just let those emotions out. And you know, we can go from being flooded with one kind of chemical that might be very inflammatory to our body, like for instance, you know, cortisol. If we're persistently in fear, our body is just endlessly being flooded with cortisol, which is very inflammatory, and it's going to every cell in your body. When we express that and we let it out, then the chemical soup changes. So same with anger. You know, when we let the anger out, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, because I know people have got, you know, lots of fears about anger. But, you know, just letting it out changes the chemical soup, and that freedom is not only in our head that we've finally been able to get it out, but it's in our body as well. And it, you know, and in terms of some of our life experiences that take maybe months, years or decades to really heal, you know, I always think it's really vital to know that that we're keeping the chemistry in our body in as good a state as possible, so that it doesn't lead in the long run to health problems and, you know, and other grief experiences. So it's a very proactive modality, and that's what I really like about it.
You are what you feel, aren't you? And bottling up emotions causes stress on the body as well as mentally. And that stress, as you said, if there's too much cortisol and adrenaline, and your body can only take so much, and that's what causes disease, chronic issues with our health. So it's definitely something that people need to learn, how to release their emotions.
Which of course we don't learn. Mostly, it's, can I take a minute just to share with you this whole idea of kind of learning to be comfortable with emotions, because you can probably see it, like it's such a thing I'm so passionate about, and I have such a conviction about, as being really crucial to our well-being in every moment of our life, but particularly in those big moments. When we're going through those life-changing experiences. And so I don't feel like it's very helpful to say to somebody, oh, you just need to express your emotions. If that person who, like me, probably like you, like most of the Western world, has been brought up in a society where we don't have role models for a healthy and appropriate expression of emotions. And if you bring it even smaller down to like the family that you grew up in, so your siblings, your mum and dad, your grandparents, aunts and uncles, if you think about those people and how they handled emotions, when I ask people, well, how did your parents deal with their emotions, they quite often, they look a bit confused for a minute, and then they go, well, I don't know. and so, really what they're saying is that they never saw their parents expressing emotions, which of course is not to say that those role models didn't have emotions, because the truth is, every time we have a thought, there is an accompanying emotion in our body. Sometimes that emotion is quite subtle and you wouldn't even notice it, and then other times the thought and the emotion that results from it is an extremely powerful response. So so that you might not have seen your parents expressing emotions, but they will have been having them. I absolutely guarantee you that they've been there. And then as the conversation goes on, it will turn out that people will start remembering that if, as a child, they had a strong emotion, and it could have been like that they were very angry, it could have been that they were very scared or sad, it could have even been that they were really, really joyful. And then they'll recollect that there was this kind of suppressing or calming down or stop it kind of message that they got, that whatever they were doing was over the top, it was too much, it was inappropriate, it didn't kind of fit with the family context about having emotions. And then we went to school, and we would get in trouble at school for having strong emotions, whether they were good emotions or difficult emotions. If we got really angry at school, that certainly wasn't okay in my experience.
You could have been punished for it.
That's right. So if we've got this paradigm where we're as a human being, we're naturally experiencing the emotions that just arise in every moment of the day for us. And then we're getting these messages from a variety of sources that certain emotions are absolutely not appropriate, and I'm mostly talking about anger there, and to a degree fear, and to a degree sadness as well. And if we hear those messages long enough, then we really internalize them. And then we just carry that forward with us in life. So when somebody comes along and says, you just need to express your emotions, some people have got so good at not expressing their emotions because of what they learnt when they were a kid.
Mm.
They can't even express them to themselves. And I find time after time that people can't even feel their emotions.
Yeah, they can't identify with them either.
They couldn't tell you what they're feeling. And so, you know, that there actually is no emotional intelligence. Probably the biggest vocabulary that someone has around emotions is, I feel upset.
Yeah.
Maybe I feel frustrated.
Yeah.
That's code for I'm really, really mad. and or they might say, oh, I'm feeling a bit blue or a bit down.
Yeah.
Which is code for I'm actually really sad.
Or depressed.
Or depressed. That's right. So it's almost like going back, starting over and learning to, and this is what I experienced myself, it's actually learning to identify what I was feeling, giving those feelings names, and then giving myself permission to express them. And when I think about the dynamics when people are going through a grief experience, which is something we're very rarely going through on our own. There are often other people involved who are all having their own grieving experiences. We, like you say, we sort of put on our game face, which says, yes, I'm feeling sad, it's terrible. Whereas really to be healthily sad, probably what we need to do is go away and find somebody in a place who has no vested interest in the outcome of the current situation, who will support us to be safe enough that we can go into that vulnerable place of really acknowledging what we're feeling. Yeah. And it's that safety that allows us to be vulnerable that so often we're really lacking.
Well, that's really what I'm trying to offer here, is to give people guidance that they can actually go and do this, because I know with myself that I didn't know if I trusted anyone with my deepest emotions. And when you are going through such deep grief, you feel that, you know, you want to basically stay at home, curl up in a ball and lick your wounds. And by doing this show, it's trying to give people the option, and okay, we're here and we're talking about this. Yes. And hopefully this will give them some sort of hope that there is, when they feel up to it, to actually go and speak with someone. Because I know in my early days, I didn't want to share with a stranger. Yeah. But then I didn't want to share with people that I knew either. So it's sort of really no-win situation in that respect. Yeah. But I think people have got to get to that stage where they know that the time is right, and then they actually go and see and talk to someone like yourself, or, you know, someone who can help them express their emotions, because they may not have ever expressed their emotions up until that point. Yeah. I know what I was like. I wasn't really connected with who I was. Everything up until before Adam, and then after Adam. So my life before Adam was a mad lady chasing after 5 children, looking after them, and basically not even connecting with who I was, because it was all kids. And then my life after Adam was, why am I here? What am I feeling? You know, what does this all mean to me, my life? And so my life changed like dramatically overnight. And there's so many people out there who would be relating to what I'm saying now. I'm sure that there are a lot of...
Oh, yeah. And I think that, you know, the sort of seems to me the crucial thing and what you just said there was that when you had this big moment in your life, you started asking yourself questions, and it's how we answer those questions. That is, like, it's whether we're opening a door at that moment or whether we're closing a door at that moment. That's the thing that really is so important. And when I think about that idea that you just want to kind of curl up in bed and hide from the world, I've certainly been there. I think that if there was something that I knew that was really helpful then, it was just that knowledge that my feelings are my feelings and they're okay.
Yeah.
And I just can remember that I've had times, and I think probably particularly when my father passed away, was that was what was going through my head was my feelings are my feelings and they're okay. And if I want to hide from the world,
that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, so I don't stay there, I think. That's the main thing.
Yeah, that's right. But it's such a subtle interplay, Vicky, between allowing our feelings and that sort of staying there, that hiding it's a really let me think of the words for it. It's, I guess what I'm saying is that when we allow our feelings, when we really, in absolute fullness, we allow our feelings, they will be self-limiting. So when we see our feelings with total acceptance, there is a healing that starts to happen straight away. And so, depression is a hopelessness. And so if we were to see hopelessness simply as it is, without rejecting it, which is rejecting ourselves, because if we're rejecting a feeling that we have, we are in that moment rejecting ourselves. And so if we were to say, I accept myself in this, that I'm having this feeling of hopelessness, it softens it.
Yes. Yeah.
When we're not fighting with it, we're not pushing with it. And then, if we ask that question that you asked about, well, where to from here? Where do I go from here? If we ask that question, why am I feeling so hopeless? And that opens a whole new door. So it kind of might sound odd to say, just to allow that anger, to allow that hopelessness, but actually each of those emotions is a doorway. There's an idea that I love working with people, which is simply that emotions exist to tell us something, and each emotion exists for a really good reason. So, for instance, anger exists to tell us that we're sensing that our needs are threatened.
Yeah.
And if our anger is really intense, then our sense is that our real core needs are really threatened in a major way. And so, when we start asking questions about, well, what is the message that this emotion is trying to give me? When we're ready to ask that question, because we might not be ready to ask that question for quite a while, but just the asking of that question opens us to that inner wisdom that will tell us exactly what we need. So, it's really a very powerful thing.
It is, isn't it? Because your emotions really are telling you either you're going the right way or the wrong way too. It's your connection to who you are, your soul, your emotions, and you're going. It's like if you're putting it in a positive way, and you're feeling really good, and life's flowing really well. Then you're going with the flow, and you're enjoying your life, and you're doing what you should be doing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Although, in my experience with the more difficult emotions, what people would call the negative emotions, we don't necessarily have a positive feeling about those emotions when we really allow ourselves to go into them, because of those fears that I talked about. Because if we have a fear that if we really allow our anger, for instance, to be present as much as it wants to be, you know, to the degree that it's trying to communicate to us, and might have been trying to communicate to us for years, for decades, we might be really afraid that if we let that anger communicate, that we're going to do something really bad or really wrong. And so it takes a certain amount of courage to really allow yourself to go into those difficult feelings. But the thing, you know, I think I really love about the wisdom of the human body and the human being is that it has a certain self-limiting capacity. You know, our inner wise self will only take us as far as we can cope with.
True. Yeah.
And so, you know, we won't ever go beyond our capacity to cope.
Yeah.
Even though it might feel that we do, but it's that stepping over the threshold. If we're not used to it, if we're not used to really acknowledging our emotions and exploring ways to express them healthily, it's that threshold that's always a scary bit.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's overcoming the fear.
That's right, which starts with saying it's okay that I feel afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then asking, why am I afraid? Why do I feel this fear? What am I afraid of? And it's just this dialogue that goes along. And if you really, you know, what Louise Hay, her, you know, the absolute cornerstone of her philosophy is, which is not unique, many people believe this, but is that our thoughts create our reality.
Yeah.
So if we think that our emotions are negative, if we think that our emotions are weak, or we think that they are destructive, or that they take us off course and they distract us from doing what we need to be doing, all of those thoughts are going to create a reality that says that our emotions are a pain in the neck.
Yeah.
Not to be touched with a barge pole. Well, that too, yeah.
So what in your experience, what's the biggest obstacle to someone who's trying to connect with their emotions? What's their biggest obstacle?
I think
fear?
Yeah, it's that learned fear.
Yeah.
That emotions are somehow going to lead you down a path that's not good. Especially with anger. But, you know, I'm sure Aussies have it, Kiwis definitely have it, that, you know, if you allow yourself to express fear, people might see you as weak. So therefore we see ourselves as weak. So it is, we feel afraid of what the implications of the emotion might be. To the degree, you know, that a lot of people are very, very afraid of anger because their belief is that if you're angry, you hurt people.
Yeah.
Emotions exist for a reason, and they exist because our body is communicating something to us. Then it kind of like takes a bit of that idea of them being a bad thing away. And it's a really simple starting point.
Yeah. So what can you offer as a simple tip for people who are struggling to really connect with their emotions?
To simply ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? And give yourself enough time to put a name on it. That's more specific than oh, I'm feeling upset
Yeah.
or I'm feeling grumpy.
So go in a bit deeper.
Yeah, I mean,
why am
there.
I feeling upset right now?
Yeah, so give it a name. So it
Mm.
might be that actually I'm feeling minimized,
Okay.
or maybe I'm feeling discounted by somebody. Maybe it's I'm feeling unheard. So get really specific, and then well, why am I feeling that? And that's it's a wonderful question, because it suggests that there's a really good reason that you're having that feeling.
Yeah.
But when people are starting out befriending and familiarizing with emotions, one of the things that I see over and over again is that they really want there to be a logical reason for the emotion that they're having. And there always is a logical reason, but it might not be the kind of logic that you want.
Yeah.
Because it's coming from a very subconscious level, that, you know, that's usually where our big deep emotions are coming from. And so one of the things to say to people is that when you're trying to get in the practice of feeling your feelings and naming them and accepting them as they are, I say, don't try and make them only okay if you can explain them to somebody else. Because then what it tends to do is it just tends to result in us going, oh, I'm really not justified in having that emotion. I shouldn't be having that emotion. And so we tend to, what we do is we think we push it aside, but what we actually do is push it down. So those things really are, you know, give it a name, develop a really big emotional vocabulary. I'm sure that you've come across people where something maybe they haven't felt very comfortable in expressing is that they're really upset with the person involved in their grief experience. So whether it was someone that passed away, and that's probably the one that, you know, we have a sort of lot of rules around, don't we, about how we should feel towards somebody who's passed away. And one of the rules is it's not kosher to be angry at them. Especially if it was an accidental death. That's right. Well, that's what, you know, we started talking about, that actually anger is a totally normal and expected part of the whole grieving process. And so, you know, when there's been a loss, there will be big feelings. There will be almost inevitably anger at some level. And so the next part of the process is when there is anger as a result of a loss, we can feel betrayed.
No, definitely.
And so that's when forgiveness comes in. And people go, but, you know, like I've done forgiveness. They say, I've done it. But in actual fact, they don't feel any better. And a lot of times what we need to do is we actually need to step back from the forgiveness, and we actually need to go, what was I really feeling? What were the emotions I was really having about that situation, that loss? Let me acknowledge them. Let me honour them completely. Let them say to me what they came to say. And often what happens is when you really let those emotions be fully acknowledged, fully honoured, then when you come to express forgiveness, whether it's just in your own heart or whether it's out loud or whether it's in a letter, there is a genuineness in it. there is a real heart for the forgiveness
Yeah.
that probably hasn't been there before, because all those emotions were sitting there wanting to be heard. And when they have been heard, then there is a certain letting go, which includes forgiveness. Yeah. So it's a wonderful thing, but it's something that takes time. And again, I come back to that. It takes courage to go into that space of.
It does, but how good is it though when you do it? You know, the feeling.
Yeah.
It's such a relief and a freedom when you can.
Yeah. It's like the presence of that event in your being changes. It lightens. It's perhaps not so demanding mentally.
Yeah.
And there is and I don't know about you, but I've certainly experienced that as being the moment where life started again.
Yeah, life started, and you feel a lot more relaxed.
Yeah.
And just able to go with the flow more than fighting all the time too. Instead of fighting the emotions, you just let them come. And you think, oh man, you know, I feel that way. That's okay.
Yeah.
You know, you could have a whole day where you think, oh man, you know, you really feel upset about something.
Yeah.
It could be reliving the grief. It could be, you know, reliving the loss or whatever, or it could be the neighbour next door, like anything. And then you think, well, it's okay. It's okay to feel like that. Don't be hard on yourself. And tomorrow's another day, and then you wake up and you've got another day, and then you don't feel that way.
That's right. And they do have a natural lifespan, these emotions, and the more we just let them be, the more easily they move through that lifespan.
Yeah, be less critical of ourselves. I think we need to be kinder to ourselves.
Absolutely. And you know, there are some great techniques that, you know, people can use, like writing a letter is a great technique. But I would also like really encourage the idea of finding somebody who can facilitate your becoming acquainted with your emotions. Somebody who can help you, like I said, to feel safe enough that you can go into that space of your emotions, which feels quite vulnerable. And you know, certainly that's a big part of what I do. And there are other people around who do that. You know, there are grief counsellors. So I run group workshops, and like I said, quite a big part of that is helping people develop an emotional vocabulary and really tapping into some of the emotions that they probably haven't had a chance to express and connect with for a long time. And I work one-on-one with people. And I just generally find that a lot of people just need a safe space and permission to feel their emotions, and that's all that's needed. The way that we push down our emotions, the problem is that we are pushing down the joyful, happy, light emotions as much as the difficult emotions. And so, I kind of love that life does have ups and downs, because that tells me that I'm flowing with my emotions on a daily basis. I have a better chance of being really happy. And it's easier for me to come to tears as well. But actually, you know, that's the soup that I'm in. And that's a good soup. That's a healthy soup.
You're really going with the flow and
that's right. It is.
It's a good way to be. I really thank you so much for sharing all of your
Oh.
wisdom and knowledge with us today, Liz.
It's my pleasure.
Well, that's all today from Vicky McClifty at AM Healing My Soul. And until then, look after yourself and treasure each day and live every moment that as happily as you can. And try and connect with your emotions. That's probably a key from today. Be honest with yourself and be kind to yourself. Until next time, bye now.
Bye.